Hello, beautiful people. My name is Caitlin, and welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to be doing a March wrap-up where I'm going to tell you all the books I read this March. And I know that March, there's still like a week left, so I'll probably, hopefully, read one more book this month, but I figure I'd do this right now anyway. Before I begin, I wanted to hit you guys with some numbers. So this month, I read 8 books. 3 of them are fantasy, 3 of them were nonfiction, and 2 of them were poetry. I ended up reading 6 books by female authors and 2 by male authors. And as far as the 5-star rating system went, I gave 4 books 3 stars, 2 books 4 stars, and 1 book 5 stars. So pretty average month. I'm going to start with going through the poetry books I read this month. The first one is Pablo Neruda's Venture of the Infinite Man. And this is the first time this poem has been translated into English, so that's kind of a big deal. It is very different from his normal poetry. Usually he writes smaller short poems, and this is one long epic poem, and it is very existential and very stream of consciousness, which usually I'm not a huge fan of. However, I ended up giving this 3.5 out of 5 stars because I thought his literary elements, especially his metaphors, were so stunning that it made up for the fact that I didn't exactly love the exact full content of it. The next poetry book I read is The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace, and this is her second collection of poetry. They're both based on taking tropes out of fairy tales and kind of taking a new spin on them. And this one was exactly the same. It took the witch trope and kind of took a feminist spin on it, which I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed all the poems that really focused on that. However, I didn't enjoy the poems that weren't focused on that. Some of them were very straightforward, very simple, and I really wanted more metaphors and figurative language, which I just didn't get. But I also, something that kind of brought this up a little step higher, is it has red font, which is so cool. I'm all for that. So I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. Typical poetry book. It was all right. Now I'm going to talk about my nonfiction books I read. The first one is Dear World, a Syrian Girl's Story of War and Plea for Peace by Bana Alabed. And I didn't give this book a star rating because I didn't feel right about giving it any kind of star rating based on what it is. So it is an 8-year-old girl's account of her life in Syria. So it talks about what life was like before the conflict, what life was like during, and after when she became a refugee. So half of this book is written from her perspective, and then half of it is written by her mom in a letter form because obviously she's 8 years old. She can't fully comprehend everything that's happening in Syria at the moment. So again, I didn't rate this because I didn't feel like I could justify a rating on an 8-year-old girl's account. She's an English language learner. Like, I can't judge the writing. I can't judge the content. I think it is really important to read. There was some controversy surrounding this book because a lot of people were saying that the mom was just using her daughter to get famous, which I don't really understand. I think that it is bringing attention to real stories and stories that need to be heard. And if it gets your attention because it's an 8-year-old girl telling it, then that's good that it's finally getting your attention. The next nonfiction book I read was Women in Power, a Manifesto by Mary Beard, and this is taken from one of her lectures and just put in print form, so it's very short, but it is basically looking at a history of women and power, especially in literature. So the literature and history nerd inside of me really loved it, and I really loved the historical aspects going all the way back to Greek and Roman times. I thought that was so fascinating. However, it didn't really bring anything new to the conversation. So it was interesting to look at the historical aspects of women and power and how that's changed over time. But as it was talking about problems, it didn't really offer any solutions to those problems. So I was looking for more of that. I think it is a really good book if you're really into feminist literature. It's a good supplemental book. So I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars because it didn't add anything new to the conversation. It's not necessary. And the last nonfiction book I read was Crushing It, How Great Entrepreneurs Build Their Business and Influence and How You Can Too by Gary Vaynerchuk. And this book really focuses on using different social media platforms to grow and start your own business. I thought it was really good as a business book because most business books really just focus on the big picture of things, and it's hard to actually apply any of those ideas to your real life and real business. What I really liked about this, gave like a lot of practical steps that you can take to actually grow your business, which I really enjoyed. However, I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars because Gary himself rubbed me the wrong way. So there were half the book are stories of different entrepreneurs and how they use social media to grow their business. And the stories were really great. But in every single story, there was a time. It was like telling the story, and then all of a sudden, they pick up his book and their life changes forever. And that was way too self-serving and cocky for my liking. So what would have been like a 4.5 out of 5 star book quickly jumped down to a 3-star book. And lastly, I'm going to go over the fantasy books I read this month. The first one is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. In the story, we follow 2 sisters who grow up in a pretty privileged family, but their mother disappears and their father becomes abusive, and they're looking for an escape. And they end up being invited to this carnival that is very exclusive and that only people can go if they become invited. So they go to this carnival and it's magical and the world is beautiful, but then one of the sisters gets stolen and the other sister is trying to find her. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars because I thought the world was really rich and beautiful and really interesting. However, the main character drove me nuts. I just wanted to shake her throughout the entire book because supposedly she kept saying to other people, like, I just want to find my sister. That's all I care about, which would be great if that was true. But like 3/4 of the book were her just thinking about the boys she was surrounded with and just like gushing over them. And I was like, no, that's not what's important right now. Stop it. So other than that, it was a good book. And I am excited to read the second one because it ended up on a cliffhanger. And it kind of sounds like the second one is going to be told from another perspective, which would be very refreshing. And that comes out in May, so I'm excited for that. The next book I read was Immortal Reign by Morgan Rhodes, which is the final book in the Fallen Kingdom series. It's book number 6, so I can't really give you too much detail about what this book is about without being spoilery. But if you love Game of Thrones or love multi-perspective fantasies, you need to check this out because it's so good. None of the characters are safe. You never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to die because anyone can die at any moment, and it's so great. Ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars because I love the characters, and any time spent with them, I'm just all here for. But the ending was a little too like put a bow on it, neat and tidy and perfect, that it didn't really fit the rest of the book of the series because the rest of the series is so unexpected and imperfect that a perfect ending didn't really fit for it. But would so highly recommend this series. And the last book I read in March was Wires and Nerd Volume 2 Gone Rogue by Marissa Meyer. And this is part of the Lunar Chronicles series. And the first 4 books were written in traditional novel form. And then the last 2 were written in graphic novel form. And this is this one. And I think it's the last book in the series, which makes me sad because I love the characters so much. But again, I can't really give you a synopsis of this book without being spoilery, but essentially this world takes place where there are people that live on the moon and they have magical powers, and then there's people that live on Earth, and it is the conflict between these 2 groups of people. I ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars because I love the characters, I love everything about this. It feels like a warm sci-fi hug, and I love it. So those are all the books I read this March. If you read any of those books, let me know in the comments below. We'll talk about them. And if you have any suggestions for what I should read in April, let me know too. Have a good day. Bye.